In my past life, the school bell was angry because my childhood friend and I went home together. She deliberately crossed the road right in front of us, and just as she was about to be hit by a car, my childhood friend, Lin Sicheng, yanked my hand away and rushed over. Intending to save her, I used all my strength to hug my childhood friend from behind, not letting him cross the road too. As a result, after the school bell was hit by the car, she was also run over in the lower leg by another truck behind it, below the knee. It was almost reduced to pulp. When she was rushed to the hospital, the only option was amputation. After the school bell woke up, utterly disheartened, she climbed onto the rooftop late one night and chose to end her life. After attending her funeral, I, the one who had stopped my childhood friend from saving the school bell, became the entire class's enemy. My childhood sweetheart beat me up in the abandoned classroom, shouting angrily, "I've never seen someone as selfish as you. How dare you stop me from saving Luo Li?" Classmates who were close to the school beauty during her lifetime came over one by one, slapping me and kicking me with all their might. Various insults and violence continued for over 5 hours. They locked me in the already abandoned classroom and then left. For 5 whole days, no one discovered my whereabouts, and no one came back to save me. In the end, severely injured, I died of thirst and starvation there. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the moment when my childhood sweetheart rushed to save the school beauty. Seeing the familiar surroundings and looking down at the clean, neat school uniform my mother had washed for me, my pupils uncontrollably contracted and trembled. I had been reborn. Why did she rush out? It's too dangerous. The familiar voice beside me belonged to my childhood friend Lin Sicheng. His expression panicked, his muscles quickly tensed, and he lifted his leg, ready to follow and dash across the road. It was the peak of rush hour, with cars flowing like a continuous stream on the road. This time, I didn't use all my strength to hug my childhood friend and keep him safe on the sidewalk. I just held my breath, pressed my philtrum, and widened my eyes as if frightened. As Lin Sicheng rushed out, I grabbed at the air, clenched my fist, and pretended to shout in anguish, "Sicheng, it's dangerous, don't go." I wanted to stop him. Crossing the street like that was an extremely dangerous act, especially on such a busy stretch of road, right during the peak hours after school and work. But Lin Sicheng obviously wouldn't take my words to heart. The school beauty before his eyes was far more important than the noisy, clamoring me by his side. With a determined look in his eyes, without even glancing at me, he quickly stepped over the roadside barrier. That's the turning point ahead. The stretch of road they were traveling on and the location of their accident are only a short distance apart. The irrational actions of the school beauty and her childhood friend caused the vehicle closest to our side to brake suddenly, resulting in a collision with the car behind. The closer to the other side, the slower the braking, making it impossible for the following vehicle to control in time, causing it to be pushed forward by inertia. When the airbag in the driver's seat deployed, I remember from my past life that 2 drivers were directly knocked unconscious in their seats. In a moment of peak, Luo Li failed to realize that vehicles on the other side of the road, due to blind spots and inertia, would be completely unprepared for someone suddenly rushing out. This led to an unavoidable tragic outcome, a lifelong regret. At this moment, Lin Sicheng was thinking of quickly pushing Luo Li, the school beauty from our class, to the other side of the pedestrian walkway. Lin Sicheng, who pushed her, paused this time and took Luo Li's place, being hit by the vehicle, and the impact threw him onto the road. Lori happened to be close to the other side of the sidewalk this time. She fell to the ground, suffering only abrasions and minor injuries. Using all her strength, she frantically crawled toward a safe spot. In terror, my childhood sweetheart, however, was knocked down by the vehicle in front. The car ahead couldn't slow down in time and first ran over his hand. Gritting his teeth against the excruciating pain, he tried to crawl onto the sidewalk. The truck behind was too high to see the person lying on the ground. The truck mercilessly crushed his legs. Lin Sicheng let out a piercing scream. The truck driver and passing witnesses also erupted in various panicked, sharp cries. On the road, shattered bones and flesh were splattered everywhere. His calves were turned into flat, crimson mush. Lori fainted from fright, and several passers-by were also so terrified that they collapsed weakly on the road. I also pretended to be stunned, kneeling dumbly on the sidewalk, clutching the straps of my backpack with a death grip. But in my heart, I couldn't help but feel joy. In this lifetime, it's my childhood friend's turn. I want to know, when this misfortune befalls him, will he genuinely thank me for not stopping it too? My dad and Lin Sicheng's dad were high school classmates. Unexpectedly, after so many years, we ended up living in the same neighborhood, becoming neighbors who see each other constantly. So our mothers became very close friends. Lin Sicheng and I have never really liked each other since childhood due to our personalities. we've just grown accustomed to each other's presence. Our parents are neighbors, so we spent a lot of time together and were practically inseparable in the eyes of the adults. We were childhood sweethearts, innocent and inseparable. In high school, I successfully got into the same school my mother once attended. Lin Xiqing's parents are very busy. While my mom is a full-time homemaker at his mother's request, my mom would prepare an extra portion of breakfast every day for me to bring to him. My mom uses high-quality ingredients, with no artificial additives or shortcuts. Plus, since it's food for kids, my mom makes it more carefully and deliciously than what's sold at school or in outside shops. Lin Xiqing and I had a rushed commute to school every day, yet he always ate with great satisfaction. Even by our second year of high school, we were still assigned to the same class as classmates. We both studied science, commuting to and from school together every day, walking the same route. However, our class gained a bright and beautiful campus belle, Luoli. Soon, Lin Xiqing's gaze was often fixed on Luoli. In order to go to school with Luoli, Lin Xiqing started waking up earlier than I did. He no longer walked with me or waited for me to go to school together every day. I brought 2 breakfasts to deliver to him that day. It was my mom's scallion beef buns. Since I arrived later than him, I was worried they wouldn't taste as good once they got cold. After handing it to him, I reminded him, "It's scallion beef filling today, eat it quickly." But Loli suddenly looked at the bun in front of me with a disdainful and disgusted expression. She said casually, "I hate strong-smelling things like scallions and garlic the most. How can you guys even eat that?" Lin Xiqing, who had become flustered upon seeing my smile, gave Loli a slight smile. "Suing, take it away quickly. Don't make her feel sick." Luoli, being comforted, revealed a sweet smile, causing Lin Xiqing's eyes to tremble slightly. I stood there awkwardly, feeling somewhat at a loss. He had been eating such breakfasts for over a year. I don't know why Lin Xiqing suddenly changed. Seeing me frozen in place, Lin Xiqing lowered his head and focused on the problem. I said dully, "Weren't you quite happy eating it every day before?" But Lin Xiqing's face turned cold as he quickly retorted, "I never insisted on eating your family's breakfast. It was your family who kept eagerly delivering it every day." The passing classmates around us burst into various mocking laughs, with Luoli laughing so hard she trembled. I thought that might have been his honest words, but I still heard him clutching his stomach during the 3rd class and instinctively saying he was hungry. But after he turned me down, I ate all 4 steamed buns, and I felt uncomfortably full for several classes. Lin Xiqing looked at me and mouthed, "You're so stingy," and I went home and told my mom about it. After hearing the whole story, my mom still told me to keep delivering breakfast as usual and quietly adjusted the breakfast menu herself. But Luoli, the school belle sitting in front of Lin Xiqing, didn't just avoid scallions, ginger, and garlic. Every now and then, she would say, "Oh, I'm allergic to peanut butter. Don't eat that kind of thing in front of me. You actually eat such greasy breakfast food. I can't eat a single bite of that." Luoli dreamed of becoming an actress. She had studied dance and performance since childhood and had been on a strict diet for years. She had long since developed an instinctive aversion to any food she didn't like to eat, or wanted to eat but couldn't. Several times, Lin Xiqing casually took a few bites of the breakfast my mom made and then threw it away, or went along with Luoli's words, mocking me for being fat and only knowing how to eat. I silently endured it all, for the sake of the friendship we had growing up together, until one time he didn't take a single bite and directly threw it into the classroom trash can. I was so furious that my blood boiled. I took a photo and sent it directly to Lin Xiqing's mom and my own mom. Anger made my head hot. Driven by the need to defend my mom and the accumulated humiliation of the past, I became somewhat reckless with my words and sent a few messages. "Auntie Lin, please see for yourself how Lin Xiqing treats the breakfast my mom made. He threw it away without taking a single bite, and even joined his classmates in mocking me as if I were forcing him to eat it every day. Not only does Lin Xiqing have poor grades, but he's also an ungrateful wretch. My mom works hard to make breakfast, and I bring it for him every day. Is this how he treats our family?" My parents thought I was a bit impulsive and didn't know how to speak properly. Lin Xiqing also blamed me for telling on him, which got him a beating from his parents. From that day on, I no longer had to bring him breakfast. I don't know what Lin's parents said to him after that. The look Lin Xiqing gave me was filled with intense hatred. I think it wasn't just about getting revenge for the school beauty. I always had better grades than him since childhood, and the atmosphere at home was more harmonious in my previous life. Before they beat me up, I heard someone say, "Suing, do you think getting into the top 10 in the whole school is something to be proud of?" The Lin family's parents were stricter with him because he was a boy. His hatred for me was more complex, tinged with jealousy and resentment, and he had long wanted to make me disappear completely. It's just that our parents were too kind-hearted, even harboring fantasies about young love in this rapidly developing era. competing with each other is the most normal relationship for children of my and Lin Siqing's age, so much so that we overlooked the fact that Lin Siqing's presence by my side was an extremely dangerous one. 3. In his previous life, Lin Siqing's desire to save Luoli was tinged with a bit of personal heroism. He gave no thought to the potential harm it could cause or to the other normal vehicles on the road. The people in those cars were also someone's father, someone's daughter, and so on. I knew that the harm caused by suddenly darting across the street wouldn't only affect pedestrians. We were in the most critical period of high school. Senior year. I didn't want this childhood neighbor, who had lived next door to me since we were young, to sacrifice his life or his bright future, so I stopped him at all costs, holding him back and dragging him, desperately preventing him from getting near that dangerous situation. Lin Siqing was momentarily flustered by my embrace and forgot to struggle, only able to stare blankly as Luoli had one of her legs crushed. Hearing Luoli's sharp cry of pain, he became furious, lowered his head to break free from my grasp, and then he turned around and slapped me, the force so great that it sent me crashing to the ground. With a bloody nose and split lip, it took the pedestrians across the street quite a while to react, and they hurriedly started dragging Luoli to a safer area. Then he took out his phone and dialed 110 and 120. Lin Siqing ran toward the crosswalk and crossed to the other side. As for me at the time, I was stunned on the road by the sudden slap and the horrific scene before my eyes. It was later an auntie passing by who helped me up and brushed the dust off my clothes. The next day when I went to school, I heard that Luoli had one leg amputated. I was once again shoved and insulted by Lin Siqing in front of the whole class. Lin Siqing seemed extremely confident that as long as I didn't stop him, he could rescue Luoli from the flow of traffic. The classmates around him were swayed by his few words and turned against Luoli, saying that she had crossed the road on her own. It ended up making it seem as if I didn't care whether she lived or died, and I stopped Lin Siqing from saving Luoli, who had accidentally run out into the road. He looked at me with clear disdain. Suing, I know you've liked me since we were kids, but you can't be this selfish. Back then, I had already regretted stopping Lin Siqing from going to save Luoli. Unfortunately, it had already happened, and at the time I also acted on my instincts and did what I believed I should do. In the days that followed, photos from the accident scene and a video of me stopping Lin Siqing from rescuing her were posted online. Several classmates maliciously spread the story, especially Lin Siqing, who as one of the people involved kept distorting the facts. They shifted the focus to me, saying that because I liked Lin Siqing, I had always been jealous of Luoli. Rational netizens would comment that crossing the road illegally was their own fault, and they were also mocked as cold and heartless. I was subjected to online abuse, and extreme internet trolls even found our school and came there to verbally attack me face to face at school. The whole class began to isolate me and bully me. As the college entrance exam approached, after Luoli woke up, she gradually began trying to take the regular Gaokao. Her grades were never good enough. Her goal was to get into an art school through the art entrance exam and be admitted early. Taking the regular Gaokao was as hard as reaching the sky for her, especially with her physical disability. Several classmates from outside the school who had already been admitted early through art school recruitment were posting all kinds of celebration videos and selfies in their moments. As Luoli's dream was completely destroyed, she saw girls who were even worse than her get admitted too. She completely broke down emotionally, thinking that she would have to live the rest of her life in such a disabled state. One late night, he climbed to the rooftop of the hospital, jumped headfirst, and despite resuscitation efforts, was pronounced dead at the scene. The next day, the entire class learned the news and was emotionally affected, especially Lin Siqing, whose gaze toward me was filled with hatred and venom. From that moment on, I prayed silently every day, wishing I could return to that day. If possible, I would never have stopped Lin Siqing because I was isolated by Lin Siqing and his followers. I wore headphones every day, numbing myself with endless practice problems. My grades weren't affected in the slightest. In fact, they even improved. Several classmates who were friends with Luoli and originally ranked near the top also saw their grades slip. After school, they took me to a classroom in the abandoned teaching building. I kept begging for mercy and apologizing, telling the truth, but they refused to let go of someone they saw as selfish. Lin Siqing repeatedly refuted my words. It was you who stopped me from saving Luoli. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been disabled, nor would she have committed suicide. I explained to him that given the road conditions at the time, anyone could have had an accident. I didn't want Lin Siqing to risk his life as well, and the traffic police had also determined that the accident was caused by her jaywalking. They clearly knew the situation perfectly well, yet they beat me up out of a sense of loyalty. They subjected me to all kinds of malicious bullying and humiliation. Lin Siqing, seeing red, roared at me, "How dare you score so well? Are you, a woman, asking for trouble by getting such high marks? Someone like you could never understand our hard work. I lay on the ground, silently enduring the rain of fists and kicks. So that's how it is. Lori's death was just their excuse. Lin Sicheng never intended for me to live, not even to have the chance to take the college entrance exam. Those classmates around me also wanted to eliminate a competitor, with a plausible excuse. Of course they would destroy what they deemed the most reasonable target. In the end, they all had other matters to attend to. And left one by one, but Lin Sicheng remained, viciously continuing to beat me for over 5 hours. I don't know how I got through it. From the miserable screams at the very beginning, later on, I could no longer make a sound. Seeing me unconscious, Lin Sicheng, who had calmed down, became terrified afterward. He closed the door and blocked the entrance with a discarded chair on the cold floor. I gradually lost all sensation. Given a second chance at life, I decided to fight back, feigning illness and controlling my scores. I want to see what kind of people they are, whose very nature is evil, what kind of lives they will have, because my ranking suddenly drops. For in this life, the car accident that happened to Lin Sicheng was even more tragic than in the previous life. The truck driver quickly got out to check the situation, and nearby drivers also stopped and left their vehicles, waiting for the traffic police. Drivers in the vehicles behind, unaware of what was happening, kept honking their horns several times. For a moment, the crowd on the road was in a state of panic, and I quickly collapsed onto the pavement. I let out a heart-wrenching cry toward the two people lying on the ground, as if my spirit had suffered a severe shock. Just like in the previous life, a kind-hearted aunt nearby, along with my grandmother, held me as I cried with reddened eyes, constantly comforting the child and telling me not to be afraid. Hearing my cries, Lin Sicheng, whose face was contorted in pain, also noticed my breakdown. Luo Li slowly came to her senses. In a safe spot, she wanted to inch closer to Lin Sicheng, but fear held her back, her pale face filled with unease. I screamed at them hysterically. It's all because of you, Luo Li. Why did you have to jaywalk? Do you know what Sicheng has sacrificed to save you? If something happens to Sicheng, what will become of his family? His parents only have this one son. I'll never walk home with Sicheng again. Okay, I'll stay far away from him for the rest of my life. Are you satisfied now? The bystanders heard everything clearly and quickly deduced that the accident was caused by a teenage love triangle. Luo Li stood up, wanting to defend herself, but no words came out. It was true. She had seen me and Lin Sicheng walking home together again, a rare occurrence. She, who had always been doted on by the boys around her since childhood, facing the departure of her most loyal and handsome admirer, she deliberately acted out of spite and made a joke to make Lin Sicheng feel she was more important. Her fair skin had multiple abrasions, bleeding in several places. As a future actress, she cherished her appearance above all else. When taken to the hospital, she kept borrowing mirrors and phones from others at the hospital. Lin's parents rushed over and burst into tears upon hearing the news. Aunt Lin cried her heart out upon learning that Lin Sicheng might need an amputation, wishing she could bear the pain for her child. Uncle Lin silently wiped his tears, casting several cold glances at Luo Li, the girl for whom his son had risked his life. Shaken by the incident, I trembled and cried uncontrollably, tears and streaming down my face, as my parents held me in their arms. When they arrived, the teachers who rushed over from the school saw my condition, frowned, exchanged glances, and thought to themselves that this promising student might very well be ruined during this critical period of senior year. In my previous life, the homeroom teacher had once suggested that I study at home to avoid the mental trauma from witnessing the car accident, which could directly affect my grades. I cried and pleaded with my parents and teachers multiple times, promising them, before I was allowed to return to school. In truth, having witnessed Luo Li's tragedy firsthand back then, I had to reduce my sleep and put in extra effort in private just to maintain my grades. Little did I expect that by staying at school, I would become the target of public criticism and attacks. In the end, due to the jealousy and resentment of those around me, I was incited and led by Lin Sicheng to be bullied to death in this life. After a moment of contemplation, the teacher suggested that I study at home. I silently shed tears and nodded in agreement. My mother, standing beside me, teared up as she smoothed the stray hairs on my forehead. This child of mine has never given us cause for worry since she was little. This time, she must have been truly frightened. My dad sighed. Susu, don't be afraid. Your mom and I will support you in studying at home. I hugged them tightly and kept repeating, I won't walk home with Lin Sicheng anymore. I'll stay far away from him from now on. Luo Li was upset and acting in anger, which is why they crossed the road together. From now on, I'll definitely stay far away from Lin Sicheng and never go near him again. It scared my parents terribly, and they gradually came to realize it too. After this accident, I can't be allowed anywhere near the Lin family. Especially Lin Siqing, otherwise, it will have a huge impact. On my mental state, approval takes 15 to 30 days because it was an exceptional case. The homeroom teacher agreed to let me take leave on the spot. He reminded me to make sure to prepare the monthly report and conduct regular home visits while at home. He also reminded my parents to supervise my study progress and to attend the school's monthly exams and any necessary mock tests. My parents took me to see a psychiatrist at the hospital, and only then did they pull me along to say goodbye to the parents of the Lin family. Lin Siqing was still in surgery and fighting for his life, while his parents sat on the chairs outside, overwhelmed with grief. Luoli, looking completely lost, was shielded by her parents as they apologized. Lin Siqing must have mentioned Luoli to the Lin family parents, which was why the confusion in Luoli's eyes. To some extent, she could not understand the unmistakable resentment and indifference in the eyes of the Lin family parents toward her now. Even though her parents forced her to apologize and agreed to pay for the surgery, she was still so angry. Faced with the Lin parents' accusations about her reckless jaywalking, and having been lectured several times by the traffic police, teachers, and her own parents, Luoli was already quite impatient. She lost her composure a bit and retorted, "He was the one who insisted on saving me. I never asked him to rush into the street." They started arguing, and it took several attempts by the hospital nurses to calm them down. My parents, confronted with this tense standoff and deeply afraid I would get upset again, just said a quick hello and hurriedly took me home. At that moment, I secretly wondered what it would be like when Lin Siqing woke up and discovered that his goddess wasn't the least bit grateful for his sacrifice. How ridiculous would that be? 5. Perhaps it was the inner unease and that accident that had an impact on her. Luoli cried many times, urged by her parents and the Lin family's parents to visit Lin Siqing more often at the hospital. The pant legs below his thighs lay flat on the hospital bed, and the arm inside one sleeve was also empty. "Luoli, are you crying for me?" After waking up, Lin Siqing saw Luoli shedding tears like a beauty before him. His first words were to confirm his heroic feat with Luoli, to make that foolish accident seem less pitiful. Paying no attention to the emotionally agitated Lin family parents beside him, had Lin thought of the hurtful words Luoli said after arguing with their family. "You know her. Stop talking." Uncle Lin interrupted her, not wanting his son to wake up and discover that he had saved someone who wasn't genuinely grateful from the heart. Luoli's injuries weren't actually severe, mostly scrapes and a sprained ankle. What needed more calming was the fear from witnessing the car accident up close after the accident, just like in her previous life. Due to Luoli's beauty, the incident quickly spread online. The official news blurred her face, but many passersby had taken photos at the scene and posted them directly on Xiaohongshu and Weibo. Her parents, to make her appear pitiful and as if she were a severely injured patient from the crash, stayed for over 2 weeks. During that time, influencer companies had already come to negotiate, planning to take a sensational route. Luoli was an art student, presumably. When she recovered and went to participate in on-site admissions, she would attract a lot of camera and media attention. Lin Siqing, who had just woken up from the car accident, didn't know any of this. He was still immersed in the feeling of having saved the campus belle. Lin Siqing had some unrealistic fantasies, thinking that Luoli might offer herself in marriage, using her entire life to repay him. He quickly spoke up, "Dad, Mom, don't blame Luoli. I wanted to save her myself." After saying this to his parents, Lin Siqing looked at Luoli, whose eyes were red, and said what he thought was a cool line, "As long as you're okay, I won't regret it." My mother and I went to visit at the time and saw Luoli skillfully press the record button on her phone. During their time in the hospital together, they talked a lot. Many times, when Lin Siqing reluctantly parted with her, Luoli still wore the perfect, charming smile of the campus belle. Presumably, Luoli had recorded quite a few of Lin Siqing's words about willingly saving her. After she returned to school early, I soon learned from our class's small group chat about the purpose of those recordings. Lin Siqing's good buddies from the class, out of loyalty, went to ask Luoli about the situation to some extent. Luoli initially refused to go to school, applying for self-study leave, preparing for the art college entrance exam half a year earlier than other art candidates, but those people weren't willing to let her off, pulling her into a few small group chats to ask her what was going on. I glanced at the messages Luoli personally sent in the small group chats and a few messages where Lin Siqing himself said he didn't regret saving her. This helped Luoli distance herself from the classmates' accusations that she was willful and caused harm, and she even pulled me into the group to at me and help her respond, asking me if I personally saw Lin Siqing voluntarily rush out to protect her own reputation. Luoli even claimed she was already close to the other side of the road, suggesting that Lin Siqing might not have needed to save her and wouldn't have been seriously injured. I knew Luoli's heart was actually quite bad. from small things like looking down on my breakfast or forcibly borrowing other classmates' umbrellas because she was afraid of getting caught in the rain. Only the boys in our class, acting like simps, thought she was a really good girl. For her, facing the selfishness and distortion of the facts after the accident was a form of self-protection. There was probably some kind of attraction between her and Lin Siqing as kindred spirits, which led them to go bad together. After a long while, I vaguely replied, Siqing, sigh, Luoli must have been terrified, and I couldn't stop him either. I don't know who posted this below. Siqing loves Luoli. I couldn't stop him either. Childish like primary school kids. Several people even copied and pasted the same reply. My mom patted me on the shoulder and said, studying at home isn't the same as studying at school. You need to be highly self-disciplined. From that day on, I cut back on how often I used my phone and focused more on studying. But since the Lin family lived right next door to us, I knew all about what happened to Lin Siqing after the car accident. Through the idle conversations at the dinner table at night with the family, I learned everything from my parents. 6. After Lin Siqing started high school, his parents became very busy with work. They could only hire a caregiver to look after him, and when they got off work, they would take over from the caregiver to care for Lin Siqing. Because of psychological trauma, I had to study at home. My parents, in times like this, would naturally side with me and not rush to look after someone else's child. They also needed my parents to supervise my studies according to the teacher's assigned progress, and to prepare detailed information about my situation for the teacher's regular home visits. It's just that after I controlled my scores in the monthly exam, my parents still looked quite worried. They didn't dare to say, why did you do well on past papers at home, but your performance dropped at school? They only mentioned it briefly. Actually, I was just pretending to be fragile on the surface, while constantly urging my parents to look at houses in City A. When I get accepted there, won't you come with me? My dad spoke more rationally. Only if you can get in, then mom and dad can follow you there. But in action, he had already opened the housing app for City A and started checking out floor plans. My mom was completely biased toward me. It doesn't matter where Susu gets in, mom and dad will go wherever you go. Thinking about how miserably I died in my previous life, I couldn't even imagine how devastated my parents would be when they discovered I had been abused to death. Lin Siqing and his group will face legal consequences after my death, but since I've been reborn, I want him to personally experience the tragic consequences of not intervening, to prevent the misery that might have befallen me. Even though the grief from the accident has reduced contact between our two families, one day, the caregiver had a family emergency and needed to take a half-day leave. My mom received a long phone call from Auntie Lin, begging her to take care of Lin Siqing for half a day. Because of the incident in our second year of high school when Lin Siqing threw away my mom's breakfast, our family had a big argument with the Lin family. Auntie Lin wouldn't have bothered my mom unless it was absolutely necessary, as she was actually quite embarrassed to ask. When my mom told me about this, she was very careful, worried that mentioning Lin Siqing might upset me. I pretended to be pitiful and scared, saying, Mom, come back early. I won't go over there. It really upset my mom, although she sympathized with a neighbor's child's situation. My midterm exam grades had dropped directly. Taking exams at home in a familiar environment was fine, but as soon as I got to school, I performed poorly, which still made them somewhat resent Lin Siqing. Coincidentally, not long after my mom went over that day, she ran into Luoli. It turned out Lin Siqing had also called Luoli. After asking around, my mom could guess that Auntie Lin was going along with Lin Siqing's request. She had called Luoli first, who gave vague answers for over an hour without confirming if she would come, so then she called my mom. Luoli was called over temporarily from her art exam training class and was somewhat in a bad mood. It was only because of the life-saving favor, plus Lin Siqing being difficult and fearing gossip, that she still came. They arrived a bit too late. Just as they entered and were about to exchange the usual pleasantries, Lin Siqing suddenly frowned and began to squirm uncomfortably. He needed to use the restroom, but his pride wouldn't allow him to say it out loud in front of Luoli. Lin Siqing also didn't want my mom, a stranger to him, to help him take off his pants. Luoli was actually very reluctant and kept talking about how she was going to take an entrance exam and probably wouldn't be able to come often in the future. She even started chatting with my mom about me studying at home. My mom, with a worried look, mentioned my declining grades and how concerned they were. Luoli exclaimed dramatically, "Oh my gosh, Suing used to have such great grades at our school. What are we going to do?" My mom sighed several times. "There's nothing we can do. We can't force her to go to school. Maybe she remembers when Siqing was fine in class and gets sad about it secretly." Lori comforted my mom, making up an excuse. Maybe if she took the college entrance exam at a different school, she could have done better. My mom lowered her eyebrows. "How can I put it? I hope so." her grades dropped too much, and the teacher is especially worried, saying that several boys in the class who were originally unnoticeable have scored better than her. Lori had somewhat been brainwashed by others' ill intentions. Auntie Sue, when I was young, I also heard that girls can't outperform boys in high school exams, which is why I chose the arts track. Suing is quite pretty too. It's a shame she didn't take that path. Lin Sicheng, because he heard what he wanted to hear, was even more unwilling to interrupt my mom's worries as they talked. Lin Sicheng suddenly struggled on the sofa, trying to get to his wheelchair, but he wanted to hear them discuss me, planning to listen carefully and tell his parents everything. By the time they realized and clumsily pushed him to the bathroom in a moment of panic, a strong foul odor and a sticky, unidentified substance slid down his pant leg. There were several inexplicable bulges on Lin Sicheng's backside. After a while, a damp, soft stain began to seep through the front of his pants. He had diarrhea right in front of his goddess, Luoli, and my mother. The foul odor lingered in the air for a long time, my mother turning her head away, and Luoli's expression, frowning in disgust. Eyes wide as she glared at him, it pierced Lin Sicheng's sensitive and fragile heart deeply. After the embarrassment, he lost control and raged. Get out, I don't need you here. My mother was about to speak to soothe his emotions, but his fierce glare frightened her badly. Lori's disgust was impossible to hide on her face. At that moment, my mom, with her kind and gentle appearance, was much more approachable than Lin Sicheng, who was furious and agitated. After she pulled my mom out, she even said at the doorway, Auntie, don't bother with him anymore. We'll only get betrayed for our kindness. Let's go. After Lori and my mom left, roars and the sound of things smashing could be heard coming from the Lin household. After this incident, Aunt Lin was even less willing to invite my mom over. 7. Lori was going to another city to take part in an early offline admission exam. Unlike in her previous life, which ended so soon, she was posting different beautiful photos in her social media feed. In this life, after getting in touch with an influencer company earlier, professionally arranged 9-grid photo sets were posted online every so often. She also earned a lot of sympathetic donations during the live stream after the accident. In the footage, she was smiling brightly, her exquisite makeup enhancing her beauty, as if the tragic car crash that day had nothing to do with her. The parents next door couldn't control Lin Sicheng. His right hand was injured, so he took the exam with his unskilled left hand. His grades plummeted drastically. They were heartbroken but couldn't bring it up. Lin Sicheng became extremely decadent. During that period, he sometimes relieved himself carelessly. The caregivers and his mother would come to clean up, change his pants, and help him bathe without showing any expression. Even sadness and heartache would make Lin Sicheng extremely angry and frantic. In just one semester, they went through 7 or 8 professional caregivers. He was afraid of social interactions, afraid of going out, and extremely resistant to his teacher's home visits. He was even more unwilling to see his classmates during monthly exams and mock exams, always feeling that those people looked down on him and would secretly laugh at him behind his back. When Uncle Lin occasionally spoke a few harsh words, it only made him feel even more humiliated. Gradually, he would think, if it weren't for saving Luoli, if Luoli hadn't insisted on crossing the street herself. Gradually, he began to harbor resentment towards Luoli, who would appear in his social media feed and on his screen. My deliberate avoidance and the way I would hide whenever I ran into him in the neighborhood also deprived Lin Sicheng of the opportunity to confide in his peers. To be honest, I eventually grew tired of the act too, and my emotions stabilized a lot. In the most recent formal mock exam, I no longer held back my score and performed exceptionally well. Our homeroom teacher was so pleased that he called my parents, and at the dinner table, my dad showed me a house. In the eyes of my parents and teachers, I had finally overcome my psychological shadow, and getting into a 985 or 211 university seemed just around the corner. He had really picked out a house in City A for me. My mom hugged me and promised that as soon as I passed the exam, she would immediately put down the deposit. Once my college entrance exam results were confirmed, our whole family would move there as soon as possible, and we would continue living a happy life together. That day, in both the class group chat and the smaller group chats, they began discussing, Luoli is missing. Have any of you seen Luoli? She came back to school so happily and told us about passing the early admissions exam, but then she suddenly disappeared in the afternoon. Someone keenly guessed, Lin Sicheng suddenly returned to school. Could it be him? I think I might be the only one who knows where Lori might be. 08. If a person pays a huge price for another person, the beneficiary is actually extremely easy to be held hostage. Even in the eyes of the benefactor, they are not worthy of happiness, cannot be happy, and even if they can have some small luck, they absolutely must not be luckier than the benefactor. Lori, who also personally experienced the tragedy in that accident, has been living too well these days. After seeing the message, I quickly called the homeroom teacher and said that Lori might be in the abandoned classroom. Lin Siqing once mentioned that location to me. The next morning, the small class group chat exploded when the homeroom teacher arrived at the abandoned teaching building with other teachers. Luo Li was being bullied by them, and the metal baseball bat Lin Siqing was holding in his wheelchair was stained with blood. Several boys in the class were involved in this incident. In the abandoned classroom, Luo Li's screams could be heard everywhere. Their actions were extremely vile, resulting in their expulsion from school, and what awaited them was prison. I think the events from my past life still happened, but this time I didn't die, and Luo Li was rescued earlier, saving a life. I have completely moved past the incident that truly left me traumatized in my previous life. After the college entrance exams ended, media and netizens occasionally recognized me and even wanted to interview me, but I was just an ordinary kid who got scared when the neighbor's child was seriously injured in a car accident, leading to a drop in grades and emotional instability. It was only during the college entrance exam that I suddenly performed exceptionally well, got into my dream university, realized my dream, and prepared to move with my parents to a big city. That's all there is to it. The end. That's the end of the first story. Don't go away. The next story is even more exciting. In my previous life, my husband faked his death and tricked me into drinking poison to die with him. I was sent to the ICU but couldn't be saved while he just had his stomach pumped and was full of life again. At the funeral, he wept bitterly before my grave. Darling, why didn't you let me go with you? Why did you replace my medicine with cough syrup? Everyone comforted him, praising him as a rare good man in the world. Yet the very next day, he was passionately entangled with his lover on the bed we had shared for 3 years. My husband whispered affectionately, "Sweetheart, that woman is dead. We can finally be together openly. The fortune she left behind is enough for us to enjoy for a lifetime." When I opened my eyes again, I returned to the day my husband tricked me into drinking poison. Darling, I've tried my best. I can't stay with you any longer, but I'm so unwilling. I can't bear to leave you. Seeing you in such pain every day truly breaks my heart. I know you can't bear to part with me either. My husband grabbed my hand and kissed the back of it tenderly. Darling, come with me, let's continue being husband and wife on the road to the underworld. Okay, his familiar, gentle words struck like a sudden alarm bell, instantly snapping me out of my daze. I bit my lower lip tightly, scanning the room. On the nightstand, 2 glasses of dark red liquid stung my eyes. I took 2 deep breaths. I had no choice but to believe the absurd reality that I had actually been reborn in my previous life. My husband was diagnosed with mid to late stage liver cancer, and the prognosis was very grim. Upon learning of my husband's condition, I cried my heart out. My spirit was tormented, and I developed severe depression under the dual blows of my husband's pre-death PUA and my depression. In a daze, I picked up the poison in front of me and drank it all in one gulp. I wanted to follow my husband Jiang Yan to the Yellow Springs together, but I was immediately poisoned, suffering unbearably. Yet he shed his feeble, sickly pretense, poured himself a glass of red wine, and celebrated, mercilessly mocked me for being as stupid as a pig. 6 months passed, and I still couldn't even tell he was faking his illness. By the time I was foaming at the mouth, my pupils dilated. Only then did he put on an act and call an ambulance for me. In the ICU, I endured the torment of every possible resuscitation method, yet still succumbed to my illness. He, however, merely had his stomach pumped and was completely fine. The day after my burial, he was already entwined with his lover in a passionate embrace on the bed we had shared for 3 years. He whispered passionately, "Darling, that woman Wu Yu is dead. We can finally be together openly now. The fortune she left behind is enough for us to live comfortably for the rest of our lives." The painful memories nearly overwhelmed my reason. I dug my nails into my palms until they bled, just to control the impulse to tear him limb from limb. I could only glare furiously at the emaciated Jiang Yan before me, yet he stared fixedly at the 2 glasses of dark red liquid and continued, "Honey, do you remember drinking the ceremonial wine at our wedding? Drink it, and in the underworld we can be husband and wife for all eternity, having lived this life over again. How could I let you fool me and deceive me again? I silently made a vow. In my previous life, you faked your death to trick me into dying for love. This time around, I'll make your fake death become real." Seeing that I still had not reacted, Jiang Yan slightly furrowed his brow. He put on a pitiful, lovesick expression and continued to emotionally manipulate me. "Honey, don't you want to live and die together with me? Like hell I want to die with you." I was seething with hatred inside, wishing I could pry his mouth open and pour the poison down his throat right then and there. But on the surface, I pretended to be in utter agony. Life is a play. Everyone has to put on an act sometimes. I sat down on the edge of the bed, suppressing my disgust as I took his hand in mine. "Of course I remember. Our wedding day was the happiest moment of my life. After saying that, I turned and picked up the poisoned wine that was originally meant for me, handing it to him at the same time. I subtly pushed his glass across the table. Husband, whether you live or die, I will stay by your side, never leaving nor abandoning you. He glanced at the nightstand, a satisfied expression appearing on his face. Wife, you are so good to me. Even if I were to die right now, I would be happy. I lay down beside him, picked up the wine glass, and clinked it with his. Husband, cheers. I would be happy to die in your arms too. Jiang Yan revealed a triumphant smile, swiftly raised his glass, and drank it all in one go. Only after confirming he had swallowed the poison did I feel at ease and finish my cough syrup. The next second, Jiang Yan sensed something was wrong because the medicine he drank was bitter. He abruptly sat up, looking at me with murderous eyes. I clung desperately to his waist, refusing to let him go. Honey, where are you going? Jiang Yan strictly controlled his diet to feign illness. His already pale face lost all remaining color, his eyes filled with terror, his voice trembled. It's too bitter. I want some water. I looked at him as if he were a fool. Bitter. Mine is sweet. Jiang Yan was on the verge of tears. To save himself, he had to admit that what we drank was different. He quickly corrected himself. I misspoke. It's too sweet. You know I don't like sweet things. I still held on to his waist, not letting him go. He was so anxious that tears welled up in his eyes as he lifted the pillow to look for his phone, but he forgot. He had already drained his phone's battery and snapped the charging cable last night. In the dead of night, he insisted on cleaning the fish tank and accidentally dropped my phone into the water. He hadn't had time to get it fixed yet. Looking back now, it was all to delay calling an ambulance when my poisoning symptoms flared up. I pressed against his back, soothing him. Honey, it must be because your body is weak, reacting first and causing an illusion. Just endure it a little longer. Once you endure it, you won't feel the pain anymore. Let me hold you, my dear. I'll be with you very soon. Jiang Yan desperately tried to pry my hands away. His whole body was trembling as he turned to look at me, pleading. Honey, quick, call an ambulance for me. I looked at him, puzzled. Why? Are you going back on your word and don't want to die anymore? But you have cancer. You're going to die sooner or later. To keep you company, I took the pills too. Jiang Yan had no way to speak of his suffering. He shoved me away hard and dashed straight to the bathroom. Then I heard the sound of him retching desperately. He stayed inside for a full 5 minutes, probably because he couldn't vomit anything up. He angrily hurled a curse. He staggered back out, his face having actually regained some color, and shook my shoulders like a madman. Call an ambulance for me. Call an ambulance. After saying that, he painfully curled up on the floor. Just after I had struggled to carry Jiang Yan onto the bed, the doorbell rang. I curled the corners of my lips. They had arrived just in time. I didn't go straight to open the door. Instead, I quickly ran to the bathroom and lightly brushed my lips with my rose-red lipstick to make it look like I had been poisoned. Clutching my chest and grimacing, I opened the door. My mother-in-law froze hard when she saw that I was the one opening the door. Only after clearly seeing my expression did she secretly breathe a sigh of relief. In my previous life, my mother-in-law also came at this time, except the one who opened the door for her was her son, Jiang Yan. She had come to bring us local specialties from our hometown. Even until the day I died, I was never sure whether her arrival had been a coincidence or whether it had been premeditated all along. I only remember that Jiang Yan's last phone call that morning was to his mother. Jiang Yan had calculated the timing and pretended to be sick. Starting when the weather turned cooler in August, he began to fall ill. During his treatment, he took the initiative to shave his head bald. He put on thick clothes and refused to let me touch his body. The reason was that he was afraid I would be upset if I saw it. He also would not let me tell anyone about his illness because he did not want others to look at him with strange eyes. Before he died, he gaslighted me into dying for him in a love pact. After I die, they will say I took my own life. Because I could not bear the torment of depression. Jiang Yan was deeply devoted to me and wanted to die with me. I couldn't bear it, so I secretly swapped his poison for cough syrup. Everyone would praise him as a good man, while blaming me for being overly sensitive and not cherishing life. Where's my precious son? Is he feeling better? My mother-in-law bumped my shoulder as she squeezed through the door, looking quite haughty. Jiang Yan and I have been married for 3 years without having children, which has caused my mother-in-law to hold a strong grudge against me. I pretended to cough twice and replied weakly, he's lying down inside. Mom, you came just in time. Let me use your phone. Jiang Yan just said he wasn't feeling well and asked me to call an ambulance for him. The mother-in-law casually tossed a sack of local specialties on the floor and hurried to the bedroom to call Jiang Yan. Jiang Yan had his back to her and did not respond. When she came out, she didn't look the least bit flustered. The mother-in-law gently closed the bedroom door and glanced at me, My son is sleeping soundly, why call an ambulance? I deliberately clutched my stomach and tried to snatch her bag. Mom, I'm not feeling well either. Let me use your phone for a moment. The mother-in-law sidestepped, firmly pressed down my hand, and spoke in a cold tone. He must be hungry. I brought the air-dried cured meat that Xiaoyan loves the most. Take a piece out and stew it for him at noon. Mom, I really don't feel well. My mother-in-law acted as if she didn't hear, sitting on the sofa by herself, scrolling through short videos on her phone. My mother-in-law's attitude made me suspect that she knew about Jiang Yan's plan to fake his death. At the time, I naively thought my mother-in-law had really come to visit us. I clutched my stomach and ran to the bathroom, shouting as I went, Mom, my stomach hurts. Please make yourself at home. My mother-in-law watched me cheerfully, probably thinking I was about to succumb to the poison. Go ahead and laugh all you want. Call an ambulance now, and your son can still be saved any later. And not even a divine being could save him. After coming out of the bathroom, I returned to the bedroom. Looking closely, Jiang Yan's body was trembling slightly. In my previous life, I remained conscious even as I was being carried into the emergency room. I could feel the pain in my body. I could hear people talking, but I couldn't move or speak. Leaning over the head of the bed, I wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and let out a chuckle. My dear husband, I know you can hear me. You must be suffering right now. I want to call an ambulance for you, but your mother won't allow it. I can't do anything about her. I know you're faking your illness, and I know you want to fake your death to kill me, take all our assets, and run off with your mother and your little mistress to live happily ever after. Unfortunately for you, I secretly swapped your syrup. Your fake death is about to become very real. You must be wondering how I know all this, but I have no intention of telling you. You just need to know that what you're suffering now is your own karma. That's all you need to know. Don't worry, I won't let your mother or your mistress off the hook either. This is what you all owe me. Jiang Yan struggled to let out a foul breath from his mouth. 2 lines of tears streamed from the corners of his eyes. I considerately wiped them dry for him. Don't worry, I won't let you die so easily. I'll call an ambulance for you right away. I suddenly let out a scream hearing the noise. My mother-in-law immediately ran over. What's wrong, making such a racket? Don't wake my son. I pointed at Jiang Yan, my hand trembling uncontrollably. Mom, Jiang Yan. He's foaming at the mouth. Only then did the mother-in-law turn Jiang Yan over and carefully examine his face. By this time, Jiang Yan was already in shock, unable to speak, yet his facial expression was one of great agony. The mother-in-law did not show any tension or panic. Instead, she looked uncertainly at her son, then at me. She looked at me, then at her son again, muttering to herself in her heart, he's just sleeping soundly, isn't he? Even in this state, the mother-in-law still refused to give up on their fake death plan. Oh, she was waiting for me to succumb to the poison. I was frantic with worry. Mom, let's still take Jiang Yan to the hospital, even if he has to go. Let him suffer a little less. Mother-in-law shot me a displeased glare and, after some hesitation, took out her phone. I'd better make a call and ask Dr. Lan. Unnoticed, I let out a cold sneer. Besides me and my mother-in-law, there was one other person who knew Jiang Yan was sick. That was his lover, the blue doctor my mother-in-law referred to, Lan Kiki. I hadn't expected that even my mother-in-law, who had lived in the countryside for years, knew of Lan Kiki's existence. If you can do that first, don't blame me for doing the 15th. I want them to watch Jiang Yan die right before their eyes yet be utterly powerless to stop it. Lan Kiki opened a psychological counseling clinic near my residential complex. In less than 10 minutes, Lan Kiki arrived wearing her work uniform, her not yet prominent pregnant belly showing. Jiang Yan has always believed the child she's carrying is his, yet after 3 years of marriage, my own belly has shown no sign of movement. This is precisely the main reason Jiang Yan feigned illness to trick me into a suicide pact. She looked at me, her brow furrowed tightly. She rushed into the bedroom with practiced yet panicked haste. The next second, she froze when she saw Jiang Yan's dark purple face holding her stomach with one hand and bracing herself on the edge of the bed with the other. She slowly slid down to sit in front of the bed. She kept shaking Jiang Yan, her eyes bloodshot. How could this happen? How could this happen? Call an ambulance, now. Jiang Yan, he's been poisoned. Watching Lan Kiki frantically perform simple first aid on Jiang Yan, only then did mother-in-law panic. Her mouth was open, but not a sound came out. She was completely stunned, the color draining from her face in an instant. I looked at them in confusion, but I drank it too. Why am I fine? My mother-in-law suddenly realized something and slapped me across the face. You useless woman who can't bear a child, you're going to kill my son. Covering my face, I cried out in grievance. He was the one who wanted to drink the medicine. What's wrong with me wanting to accompany Jiang Yan? Why did you hit me? The mother-in-law slapped her thigh. wailing loudly as she scrambled towards Jiang Yin. It's over. It's over. It's all over. I snatched the phone she had been guarding so fiercely and called an ambulance, but deep down, I knew it was already too late. Jiang Yin, he couldn't be saved. My son, you must not let anything happen to you. The ambulance took Jiang Yin to the ICU for emergency treatment, just like me in my previous life. They used every possible resuscitation method and piece of equipment available. Although I was unconscious at the time, I still retained the last shred of awareness, being pressed on over and over, intubated, pumped stomach, shocked with electricity. That feeling was worse than dying on the spot. Right then, the hospital was bustling with people coming and going. Perfect timing for me to distance myself from this. Leaning helplessly against the wall, staring straight at the emergency room, I broke down in tears. Honey, you absolutely mustn't die. You asked me to die with you, so why did you swap out my poison for cough syrup? If I had known you were going to do this, I would never have agreed to die with you. Even if you're sick and don't have many days left, as long as you're alive for one more day, you're my pillar of strength. If you leave like this, how am I supposed to go on with my life? I cried my heart out, utterly devastated in a hospital setting where life and death partings can happen at any moment. It's easiest for people to empathize. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed someone in the crowd secretly wiping away tears. I never thought there are still people willing to die for their loved ones. This woman must have loved her husband deeply. Whether her husband loved her as much is hard to say. Didn't you hear her say it was her husband who asked her to die with him? Exactly. Even someone with a terminal illness shouldn't be so heartless as to ask their wife to die with them. Didn't he replace the poison with syrup again? That shows he didn't truly want his wife to die either. Perhaps he had some difficulties, right? The onlookers all cast sympathetic glances at me. Just then, the doctor came out of the emergency room. My mother-in-law and Lan Kiki immediately rushed forward, shoving me, the legitimate wife, aside. Lan Kiki was so nervous she started pinching her fingers. Doctor, my friend was saved, right? Doctor, is my son okay? Can I go in and see him? The doctor glanced at them, shaking his head helplessly with a sigh. Too much time was lost. We did our best. Please accept our condolences. It felt like a bolt from the blue struck her head. Lan Kik's tense shoulders instantly slumped. Her body swayed uncontrollably. She braced herself against the wall to stay upright. Her mother-in-law broke down. Her wrinkled face was etched with disbelief. She desperately clutched the doctor, her voice trembling. Impossible. How could my son be dead? You bunch of quacks. You're the ones who killed my son. Give me back my son. The doctor was quite helpless in the face of the mother-in-law's unreasonable behavior, but understanding her grief over losing her son, he patiently explained. Mom, I shouted, once again drawing the attention of everyone passing by. If you hadn't stopped me from calling an ambulance, my husband might have been saved. You killed Jiang Yin. You killed your own son. My mother-in-law's face was streaked with tears as she slowly turned her head. No longer wanting to pretend, she suddenly rushed over and slapped me hard again. That's bullshit. My son didn't have to die. You forced my son to drink the poison. You're the one who killed him. Give me back my son's life. My mother-in-law suddenly turned the tables, shifting all the blame onto me. But I won't let her cunning scheme succeed again. Covering my face, I retorted, I didn't. I love Jiang Yin. Why would I force him to take poison? He has liver cancer. You were afraid he'd be a burden to you, so you wanted him dead. You vicious woman. Not only have you failed to give the Jiang family a single child, but you also poisoned my son. Today, I'm going to beat you to death to avenge my son. I heaved a deep sigh of relief. This foolish old woman's self-exposure undoubtedly helped clear my suspicion once again. However, more and more onlookers are left bewildered. No way, this plot twist is too shocking. That would be murder. I was just feeling sorry for this girl a moment ago. There are no dutiful children by a long sickbed. Taking care of a patient is truly mentally exhausting. I know from personal experience. But that doesn't justify poisoning someone. Hard to judge. The human heart is inscrutable. It's really impossible to tell who's telling the truth and who's lying. I didn't even have time to open my mouth and question her. The doctor was the first to freeze, his brow furrowing seriously. Are you sure you have the right person? The deceased did not have liver cancer. Aside from organ failure caused by poisoning, all bodily functions were healthy. I grabbed the doctor and wouldn't let go. What? My husband doesn't have liver cancer. But he's been sick for half a year, getting chemotherapy at the hospital every month. Look, here's his diagnosis report. I took out the diagnosis report from my bag that showed Jiang Yin had liver cancer. The doctor only glanced at it, and his expression changed instantly. Nonsense. This is just a piece of paper without even a hospital stamp. How can this be considered a diagnosis report? I was completely stunned. Mom, did you know about Jiang Yin pretending to be sick? Why did he pretend to be sick and trick me into dying together? This morning, I saw his cup of medicine was too full. My heart ached for all the suffering he had endured over the past 6 months. So I insisted on taking his cup instead. If we hadn't swapped, then wouldn't the one dead now be me? The mother-in-law, lost in her grief, turned a deaf ear. She slumped to the floor, murmuring distractedly, "That's not how it was. Xiaoyan told me that no matter what happened, I shouldn't interfere, that he had his own arrangements. I thought he was pretending." The situation took another unexpected turn. The onlookers were so shocked their jaws dropped. Can anyone make sense of this? What kind of soap opera plot is this? Her husband wasn't sick, but he was poisoned. Someone must have poisoned him. We can't just take her word for it. But have you considered, if her husband was perfectly fine, why would he pretend to be sick, and with an incurable liver cancer? How does he end this without dying? How does it end? Is it possible that her husband had some purpose in mind and wanted to fake his own death, seeing that they could no longer keep up the pretense? The mother-in-law and Lan Kiki, suppressing their grief, dispersed the crowd at that moment. Jiang Yan's body was also wheeled out. The mother-in-law held Jiang Yan, crying her heart out, looking at the stiff body under the white cloth. I finally let out a sigh of relief. It was as if the suffering I endured because of him in my previous life suddenly felt lighter. Seeing her in such unbearable pain, the onlookers dispersed, no longer gathering around. My mother-in-law told me to get lost and forbade me from accompanying them to the crematorium, although I couldn't be bothered to collect the remains of this scumbag either. But thinking about what might happen next, I had to watch him turn to ashes to be completely at ease. I stubbornly followed them onto the car heading to the crematorium. Only after seeing Jiang Yan pushed into the incinerator did I quietly leave in peace. When I got home, I first packed up all of Jiang Yan's belongings and threw them into the trash bin downstairs. Then I transferred all the money in our account to my parents in the name of alimony. Jiang Yan refused to divorce me and instead chose to fake his death and trick me into dying for him. Wasn't it just because he wanted to keep all my property for himself since he was heartless? He can't blame me for being ruthless. I run a beauty salon, and it brings in several million in net income every year. Over the past 6 months that Jiang Yan has been sick, he has taken at least 200,000 yuan from me every month for treatment. Whenever he came across folk remedies or miracle drugs, as long as he wanted to try them, I would give him hundreds of thousands or even millions. But he never let me accompany him to see a doctor, afraid I might hear bad news and be devastated since he wasn't sick at all. This money must have been transferred away by him. Ever since he fell ill, I had become depressed, and whenever I thought about a life without him in the future, I couldn't help but burst into tears. I loved him so deeply that I was even willing to give up my right to become a mother for him. He had never known that the reason I hadn't conceived for 3 years was not mine. It was because he had asthenozoospermia. For his sake, I concealed the real reason. I just used the excuse of fate not having arrived yet to placate him. In just 2 short months, I had tormented myself into depression. I also lost the heart to run the beauty salon, and for half a year, it was basically operating at a loss every month. I never imagined that the person I loved so deeply would betray me, fool around with another woman, and even have a child with her. I knew that after Jiang Yan's death, my mother-in-law and Lan Kiki would never let the matter rest. I asked a friend to introduce me to a lawyer who was exceptionally skilled at litigation. My aim was to ensure that my mother-in-law and Lan Kiki couldn't gain the slightest advantage from me. The 3 million Jiang Yan swindled from me must also be recovered. Everything is ready except for the east wind. This time, it's my turn to pour myself a glass of red wine to celebrate. My gaze wandered, scanning the surroundings. Jiang Yan, oh Jiang Yan, are you also like me? Unwilling to accept it, with your soul returning, so close to success, yet you stumbled at the last moment. You must hate me to the core, right? Ha ha ha, why am I so happy? That night, whether it was the effect of the alcohol or finally letting go of my worries, I didn't even take my antidepressants and still had a good night's sleep. On the 3rd day, my mother-in-law returned, holding Jiang Yan's ashes. After just 2 days apart, she seemed to have aged a decade in an instant, her expression bleak and defeated. Her half-gray hair had turned completely white. Following behind her was Lan Kiki, her face haggard. The two supported each other, with heavy dark circles under their eyes, likely having had little proper rest these past few days. Lan Kiki had deliberately worn a form-fitting knit dress today, even wrapped in her coat. Her small pregnant belly was distinctly prominent. I was momentarily taken aback, surprised that my mother-in-law, upon seeing me again, did not immediately lash out at me. However, less than 2 minutes after they entered, 2 police officers also arrived at the door. I see, who called the police? My mother-in-law held the urn, her eyes bloodshot, looking at me as if she wanted to devour me. Officers, you must uphold justice for me. This poisonous woman used poison to kill my son. causing him to die in agony, quickly arrest her and poison her too, with the most potent poison. The officer's face turned as dark as coal. I mourned my mother-in-law's ignorance for a second. Officers, please don't mind her. My husband just died, and my mother-in-law can't handle the shock, so she's talking nonsense. My husband was indeed poisoned, but he poisoned himself. It had nothing to do with me. My mother-in-law clenched her teeth and tried to come at me again. Bullshit. Keep slandering my son, and I'll tear your mouth apart. My son had a perfectly good life. Why would he poisoned himself? I explained calmly and sincerely. Officer, my husband didn't want to poison himself. He wanted to poison me. By some twist of fate, I drank his medicine, and that's how I narrowly escaped disaster. And he also faked being sick and lied to me for half a year. I calculated it, and just in those 6 months, he took nearly $300 from me in treatment expenses. 100,000. This is the fake diagnosis certificate he gave me, and these are the bank transfer records I compiled. Officer, please, you must help me find out where all this money went. When I said that last sentence, I kept staring at my mother-in-law and Lon Kik's faces. Lon Kiki looked momentarily flustered, but quickly regained her composure. She merely pressed her lips tightly together and said nothing, tears streaming down her face. My mother-in-law, unlike at the hospital 2 days ago, came up with a new story this time. My son simply got sick of you, this barren hen, and wanted to leave you, but you refused to get a divorce and wouldn't give me a share of the money. Son, he was just pretending to be sick. After you found out, you heartlessly poisoned my son to death and even slandered him, claiming he wanted to harm you. How could you be so cruel? My son was blind to have married such a venomous woman like you. The mother-in-law gave Lon Kiki a meaningful look. She finally couldn't hold back and spoke up. Officer, Jiang Yan is my patient. He often comes to my studio for psychological counseling. He mentioned to me multiple times that his marriage was falling apart and he wanted a divorce, but his wife was too domineering and threatened that if he divorced her, she would kill him. I knew they wouldn't let me off easily, but I never expected them to join forces and fabricate false evidence to frame me. I pinched my palm and squeezed out 2 tears. Officer, I know you need solid evidence to handle cases. I can't prove that my husband faked his illness and death to trick me into committing suicide, trying to kill me, but they also have no evidence to prove that I poisoned Jiang Yan. So, if we can just prove that bottle of poison was bought by my husband, I can be cleared of suspicion. Right? The officer nodded. As long as it could be proven that the poison was purchased and successfully received by Jiang Yan, my innocence would be established. The problem is, Jiang Yan's phone is missing. I searched every corner of the house but couldn't find Jiang Yan's phone. Yet my proposal severely shocked the person who hid the phone. The police officer said that if this case wasn't Jiang Yan's suicide by poison, it would involve criminal facts, and we needed to go to the police station to give a statement. They thought that by privately colluding and calling the police, they could convict me. Little did they expect to end up lifting a stone only to drop it on their own feet. Now, admitting that Jiang Yan committed suicide by poison would constitute slander against me just moments ago. If they don't admit it, and Jiang Yan's phone is eventually found, it will reveal that the poison was indeed purchased and used by him privately. Plus, he faked an illness to swindle money earlier, which gives him a motive to harm me. Both of their faces turned pale. Even if they hid Jiang Yan's phone, the police could still trace some of his spending records. Mother-in-law doesn't know the power of modern forensic technology, but Lon Kiki couldn't possibly be unaware. Mother-in-law was about to say something when Lon Kiki suddenly grabbed her arm and pulled her back. Mother-in-law stumbled backward, nearly dropping the urn in her hands. Lon Kiki hurriedly caught her, saying anxiously, "Auntie has a heart condition. She hasn't rested properly these past few days while handling Jiang Yan's funeral arrangements. She's probably having an episode." The mother-in-law caught her meaningful glance, suddenly rolled her eyes back, and was about to faint. My heart hurts. Medicine. The medicine is in my bag." Lon Kiki hurriedly took a fast-acting heart relief pill from the bag and fed it to her. The 2 police officers helped her lie down on the sofa. They called me aside and asked a few questions privately. When they returned, the mother-in-law had already calmed down. She also changed her story to the police officers. The mother-in-law, almost grinding her teeth, apologized to the police. "I'm old and confused now. My memory isn't what it used to be, and I can't remember many things clearly. Maybe my Xiao Yan really did commit suicide, and with my daughter-in-law, it has nothing to do with me. I couldn't accept my son's death for a while, so I took out my anger on my daughter-in-law. I apologized to her. Daughter-in-law, for Xiaoyan's sake, since he just died, can you forgive Mom? In the end, they didn't dare confront the truth head-on and chose the way of reconciliation that would cost them the least. Making her admit that her own son died by poisoning himself must have felt like a knife to the heart if I had been reborn even a moment earlier. I could have slapped the evidence of her son harming me right in their faces by now. At this point, all I can do is take it one step at a time. I'd like to see what other tricks they have up their sleeves. To my surprise, the next second, Lan Kiki walked over, puffing at her big belly with tears in her eyes. She called out to me with infinite sorrow, "Sister Yaya." I got goosebumps all over and instinctively stepped back, keeping a safe distance from her. "Sister Yaya, things have come to this, and I can no longer keep it a secret. I am not only Brother Zhang's psychologist, but also his beloved." I pretended to be hurt, covering my mouth. "What? Jiang Yan actually kept a mistress behind my back?" Lan Kiki's face flushed instantly, biting her lower lip in shame and indignation. "I know you've always loved Brother Jiang deeply, so you should know that his greatest wish in life is to have a child of his own. The child I'm carrying is Brother Zhang's only bloodline. Please don't blame Brother Jiang. He kept it from you because he was afraid of hurting you." I let out a cold laugh. "He faked his death to trick me into dying for love because he was afraid of hurting me. Do you even believe that when you say it?" Lan Kiki awkwardly glanced at the two police officers beside her and continued, "Sister Yaya, please don't make such jokes anymore. A day as husband and wife brings 100 days of kindness. Brother Jiang is gone now. Sister Yaya, both auntie and I hope you can accept this child and let the child inherit the legacy he deserves." Humph, the fox's tail is finally showing. Mother-in-law also sat up, swallowing all her anger in order to get the inheritance. "Yeah, the child in Kiki's belly is the only seedling of our old Jiang family. For the sake of your many years of marital affection with Xiaoyan, please acknowledge this child." After thinking it over, I softened my attitude as well and said with emotion, "If this child really is Jiang Yan's, then of course I have nothing to say." Mother-in-law and Lan Kiki exchanged a glance, secretly letting out a sigh of relief, and smiled obsequiously at me. However, I frowned and curled my lips. "Jiang Yan is dead. How are you going to prove that the child in your belly is his? Everything has to be backed by evidence. Without legal proof, I won't acknowledge it." Lan Kiki ground her back teeth, and mother-in-law almost passed out from anger again. Lan Kiki wiped away her tears in grievance. "I've only ever had one man in my life, Brother Jiang. If it's not his child, whose could it be? How would I know? You're so empathetic, and you've seen so many male patients. Right now, the only thing that can prove its connection to Jiang Yan is probably a paternity test." Mother-in-law slapped the sofa hard, unable to control the volume of her voice. "Xiaoyan has already been reduced to a pile of ashes. Where do you expect us to get a paternity test?" I smiled serenely. "Then there's nothing I can do. Who told you not to think it through before cremating Jiang Yan? Jiang Yan had just died, and you came bringing a pregnant stranger to claim the inheritance. I seriously suspect you're after my assets. If I so easily agreed today to let the child your mistress is carrying share in the inheritance, would you come tomorrow with a fourth and fifth mistress to rob me?" The mother-in-law jumped 3 feet into the air, her face twisted with fury as she glared at me. "Nonsense. If I say he is, then he is. I only acknowledge this eldest grandson. Xiaoyan told me before he died that the child in Kiki's belly is his own flesh and blood. Isn't it just a paternity test? I'll do it with him," the police officer reminded from the side. "Only by presenting the specimen of the person involved in the appraisal can the appraisal result have legal significance." My mother-in-law couldn't hold back anymore, panting with anger. "I asked you to come here to uphold justice for us, not to help her deal with me." I was practically laughing in disbelief. Did she think the police station was her family's property in the end? My mother-in-law had no other choice and could only claim the portion of the inheritance that rightfully belonged to her. The moment they entered, I had already sent a message to my highly paid, specially hired lawyer. By the time we'd been at it for a while, she had already appeared at my doorstep. Based on the asset information I provided her, she had already drafted a property division agreement. The house and the car are my premarital property, and they have absolutely nothing to do with Jiang Yan. After we got married, he asked me to add his name to the property deed, and I gladly agreed. It was only at my parents' insistence that we signed an additional agreement. If Jiang Yan causes the breakdown of the marriage for personal reasons, he will not be entitled to any ownership rights in the property right now. I truly admire my parents' foresight. There isn't a single penny left in Jiang Yan's account. A week ago, he withdrew cash multiple times, but where it ultimately ended up remains unknown. He only gives his mother-in-law some money during holidays and festivals, so that money was most likely given to Lan Kiki. When my mother-in-law heard that only 38 yuan and 20 cents remained in my account, she completely lost her temper. Impossible. How much your beauty salon earns every month? Do you think I don't know? You're hiding assets and mistreating the elderly. I'll sue you. I made a please gesture. Go ahead and sue. Anyway, it's just these 19 yuan and 1 jiao. Take it or leave it. Over the years, Jiang Yan has taken plenty of money from me to give to you as a tribute. One should know when to be content. Think about all the things you've done to me. What gives you the nerve to bargain with me? Mother-in-law was so angry she was panting heavily. I grinned widely and transferred 19 yuan and 1 jiao to her. After the police left, my mother-in-law and Lan Kiki stubbornly stayed in my house and refused to leave to spite me. They even placed the urn on the altar in my living room where I worship the god of wealth. They threatened to hold Jiang Yan's 7th-day memorial ceremony at my house, claiming only then could he rest in peace. They also demanded I pay my mother-in-law 20,000 yuan in monthly support. If I didn't give it to her, she would stay in my house forever. I've already died once, why should I fear her ghosts and demons? I grabbed the urn and rushed to the bathroom. Dare to block my god of wealth's path. Go be scrap in the septic tank today. My mother-in-law was so frightened she quickly snatched it away, never daring to leave the urn where I could see it again. Later, Lan Kiki left, but my mother-in-law remained at my house, holding her ground. After the security guard drove her out, she squatted at my doorstep, clutching the urn. She acted erratically around the neighborhood, accusing me of poisoning her son and refusing to share the inheritance with her, because I hadn't properly managed the beauty salon for over half a year. Many clients were lost, and I was nearly facing bankruptcy these days. I've been staying at the shop, planning promotional activities to win back old customers, and I neglected to drive my mother-in-law away. My mother-in-law is domineering but not very clever. She has been waging a prolonged guerrilla war against me, slandering me everywhere, which must be Lan Kiki's scheme from behind the scenes. In just a few short days, I had become the venomous, ruthless, and wicked woman everyone spoke of. Everyone who saw me treated me like a vicious criminal and avoided me at all costs. In private, I went to see Lan Kiki once. My personal lawyer had already helped me investigate and found that Jiang Yan had indeed transferred the money to Lan Kiki. I told her to return the 3 million that Jiang Yan had transferred to her as soon as possible, or I would have no choice but to take legal action. Lan Kiki abandoned her submissive demeanor from that day and mocked me coldly with an arrogant, superior attitude. She laughed at me for having no evidence and called me a fool with too much money, so I hired a private investigator to look into her. Later, my mother-in-law's battleground gradually shifted from my residential complex to my beauty salon. The clients I had painstakingly won over would be harassed by her the moment they stepped outside. She always held an urn in her arms, ranting madly about the crime of me having killed her son. As a result, the clients I had just managed to win back completely fell out with me and demanded refunds. Even the employees were scared and quit, running off with their buckets when I could no longer it. I received a few photos sent by a private investigator. When I threw the photos of Lan Kiki secretly meeting and flirting with other men at my mother-in-law, she still refused to believe it. Later, I showed her the report stating that Jiang Yan had low sperm count. That was an inspection report with all the seals properly affixed. I told her definitively that the child in Lan Kiki's belly was not Jiang Yan's. My mother-in-law instantly transformed into a raging beast. She stormed furiously towards Lan Kiki's psychological therapy room. The next day, a malicious mutual assault and injury incident occurred in our jurisdiction. When I was notified by the police and arrived at the hospital, my mother-in-law was undergoing emergency treatment in the ICU. Lan Kiki was also wheeled into the operating room due to a miscarriage. The officers who received me were still the same 2 police comrades from last time. This time, everyone looked at me with a hint of pity in their expressions. It turned out that my mother-in-law had chased Lan Kiki to her consultation room that day to question her about the child. Knowing that her mother-in-law was domineering and difficult to deal with, she coaxed and placated her until she was appeased. The next day, her mother-in-law brought her some soup she had made, only to find her being intimate with a man, and that man was the one from the photo I had shown her. Furious, her mother-in-law poured the entire pot of hot soup over both of them. Seeing that the truth was out, Lan Kiki no longer wanted to hide it. She directly stated that the man was her real boyfriend, and Jiang Yan was just a tool for her to make money. The child she was carrying was not Jiang Yan's, but her boyfriend's. The mother-in-law was so furious that she kicked her in the stomach. Blood was seen immediately. The mother-in-law, unable to contain her anger, also revealed the truth. Jiang Yan had faked his death for her sake, tricking me into committing suicide for love, intending to kill me so they could be together. As she hit her, she felt it was not worth it for her son. He abandoned such a good and capable wife, ruining his entire life for such a shameless, habitual homewrecker. He even lost his life over it. Lan Kiki's boyfriend directly lifted the mother-in-law and threw her to the ground. He beat her for over 10 minutes. The mother-in-law suffered multiple fractures and was unconscious when rescued. In the end, the mother-in-law could not be saved. Covered with a white sheet, like Jiang Yan, she was wheeled out of the ICU emergency room. I sued Lan Kiki and her boyfriend in court. 3 months later, Lan Kiki not only had to repay my 3 million debt, she was also sentenced to 5 years in prison for her involvement in Jiang Yan's plot to murder me. Her boyfriend was sentenced to life imprisonment for the crime of intentional injury resulting in death. With that, the retaliation against the injustices of my past life has come to a complete end. From here on, my life truly begins. In this lifetime, I will live freely and brilliantly. Story 2. After the story between me and my ex-boyfriend was dug up, netizens went crazy over it, saying that we were the ceiling of the bad ending aesthetics. His white moonlight personally came forward to expose it as fake, saying that I was hyping it up. My ex-boyfriend also reposted the Weibo. It's fake. Please respect yourselves, irrelevant people. Later, we met at a dinner party. Someone casually mentioned that in order to get a role for my ex-boyfriend, I was forced to drink at the dinner party until I had a gastric hemorrhage and was sent to the hospital. He had always thought that the white moonlight had fought for that role for him. His face changed instantly, and he looked at me in disbelief. People around me felt it was unfair to me and asked if I regretted it. My ex-boyfriend looked at me with a complex expression. I thought for a while and smiled, looking relieved. I don't regret it. I've let it go long ago. The expired sweetness between me and my ex-boyfriend was dug up by netizens. It was a video from 3 years ago. At that time, I had just won the Best Newcomer award. When being interviewed, the reporter asked me if I had anything to say. I held up the hem of my dress with my left hand and the trophy with my right hand, secretly looking at Li Yuan beside me through the camera. He had just debuted at that time and was still an unknown newcomer, standing in the corner. No one interviewed him, and he was all alone. I smiled brightly and whispered, "That's my boyfriend. He's very talented. He will definitely become a great actor in the future." Snowflakes drifted down on the red carpet at some point. The white crystals landed on my eyelashes. I put my hands together. Please take good care of him. The video was paired with a BGM and edited into a touching and sentimental one. Netizens also cut in the video of Li Yuan winning the Best Actor award later. He was giving his acceptance speech. "I want to thank someone who is very important to me. Without her, I wouldn't be where I am today." As he spoke, he looked affectionately at the audience, and the suppressed emotions in his voice were almost overflowing. "Thank you for always being with me. I hope we can continue to walk together in the future." Netizens left messages one after another. "Woo woo. I'm really into this. I want to cry." Ning Yan didn't promote herself when it was the most important moment for her, but asked everyone to take care of Li Yuan. She really loves him. It's a two-way admiration. Li Yuan really became a great actor, as she said. He even thanked her when he won the Best Actor award. "Look at his eyes. They're really affectionate." Later, "I finally became the great person you mentioned, but I also lost you." Why did they break up later? This video swept through various platforms. For a while, the names of Li Yuan and I shot straight to the top 3 of the hot search list. To be honest, the editing level of this video was really amazing. Truly, there are masters among the people. Even I couldn't help but sigh. If I wasn't the protagonist myself, I'm afraid I would really be moved. But only I know that Li Yuan's words of gratitude were not for me at all. The person he was talking about was his white moonlight. I broke up with Li Yuan on the day he won the Best Actor award. Speaking of which, at that time, I really thought he was thanking me and even contributed a tear-jerking scene. After all, for his sake, I couldn't say I went through fire and water, but I really did my best. At that time, he was a newcomer with few opportunities. I used all my connections to pull strings and get him roles, and even shared my agent with him in order to give him a chance to show his face. I lowered my salary just to get him into the crew with me. It's so difficult to get good roles in the entertainment industry. All kinds of newbies are desperately trying to stand out. In order to help him get a supporting male role, I was forced to drink by a director until I had a gastric hemorrhage and was sent to the hospital that night. But everything was worth it. I have to say that Li Yuan is really talented. He's also very good looking, even among the good looking men and women in the entertainment industry. He's the most eye-catching one. That supporting male role made him an instant hit. He became a new male god, and for a while, he was in the limelight. He received various film offers and his hands were full. With his outstanding face and cold, abstinent temperament, he fascinated a group of young girls. His fans skyrocketed to over 10 million in just a few days. But that night, after the awards ceremony and during the dinner, when I came out of the bathroom to sober up, I saw him hugging Xin Yue. The cold light froze me in place. and I could only watch them kiss intimately. Shin Yue was Li Yuan's first love. The two had been together since college and had been in a relationship for more than 5 years. She's also in the entertainment industry. Later, because the company didn't allow her to date, they had to break up. In fact, I had long guessed that Li Yuan entered the entertainment industry for her. I looked at Li Yuan. The corners of his mouth had a slight smile, and his expression was so gentle that it almost melted. He buried his chin contentedly in Shin Yue's shoulder. I had never seen him like this. He was always serious in front of me. At that moment, I finally understood that in love, effort is the most useless thing, and everything in these years was just my self-indulgent affection. His heart was already completely occupied by another person. No matter how desperate I was, it was all in vain. They were so well matched under the light, like a perfect couple. Even I couldn't help but think that he really seemed more suitable to be with her. So that night, I broke up with Li Yuan. The process of breaking up wasn't very pleasant. I was young and impulsive at that time. Love and hate were just a thought away. In my thoughtless words, I called him an ungrateful person, said that it would be better to raise a dog than him, and that I was blind before and now I felt disgusted when I saw him. Li Yuan also scolded me for self-moving, saying that he didn't need me to run around for him at all, and that he had never liked me from the beginning to the end. Finally, I couldn't help but shed tears. With red eyes, I asked him in a trembling voice, "So, who was the person you thanked when you won the award?" He clenched his teeth tightly and turned his head aside. After a while, he said coldly, "Of course it's Yue. Who else could it be? Stop being self-indulgent." I see. I wiped the tears on my face and said softly, "Li Yuan, let's break up. That was a year ago." I was really sad for a while at that time. I not only felt that I wasn't worthy of being loved, but also felt that all my efforts were in vain. I also drank a few times and was in a daze for a while, but now, I feel like I've gotten over it. When I saw this video again, I just smiled and sighed to my agent. Look how stupid I was back then. Li Yuan was right next to me, not even looking at me, and I was still eagerly asking others to take care of him like a fool. The agent sighed. Who hasn't met a few scumbags when they were young? Then her face changed. Shin Yue posted on Weibo. I didn't react yet. What's wrong with posting on Weibo? The agent frowned tightly. She said you're hyping it up, and that the person Li Yuan thanked back then was her. I opened Weibo and found that Shin Yue had reposted the video of Li Yuan and me, with the comment, "Wow, it's edited so well, I'm even into it," but the person Mr. Li thanked back then seems to be me. I don't mean to take up public resources, but I hope there will be less bottom line, less hyping soon. Li Yuan reposted her Weibo. Kissing everything will only hurt you. The person I've always thanked is Yue. Please respect yourselves. Irrelevant people, irrelevant people. The agent was so angry that she started cursing beside me, but I just stared at these words until my eyes were dry and sore. So in his heart, I had always been just an irrelevant person. Those whispers, those late night sweet words, and those smiles and tears, it turned out that it was all just a one-man show for me. What should we do? I smiled bitterly. There's nothing we can do. What she said is true. The person Li Yuan thanked wasn't me in the first place. The agent was anxious, but now she's starting to stir up trouble, saying that you got involved in the relationship between her and Li Yuan, taking advantage of their quarrels. She's calling you a mistress. Sure enough, a large number of trolls appeared in the comments. Are you crazy? People are even into a mistress. Li Yuan and Shin Yue have been together since college. It was Ning Yan who shamelessly got involved when they were quarreling. Okay, yeah. Do you really think that netizens back then didn't go online? Can mistresses just die? Ning Yan, get out of the entertainment industry. You got involved in someone else's relationship and still have the nerve to hype it up. It's really outrageous. In just a few hours, a large number of trolls who were guiding the public opinion appeared in my comments. These accounts were newly registered, and some of them didn't even have avatars other than the default ones. They couldn't produce any evidence, but just crazily controlled the comments. But the netizens who were enjoying the gossip didn't care about this at all. Many people really believed that I had gotten involved with Li Yuan and Shin Yue, and they cursed me under my Weibo, and even went to the comments of my new drama to flood the screen, asking the director to replace me. No matter how I explained on Weibo, they didn't believe me. They didn't need the truth. They just needed an object to vent their anger. The agent was so anxious that she was pulling her hair. Just now, several endorsement companies came to me to ask what was going on. I managed to fob them off. You should call Li Yuan quickly and ask him to explain for you. You two got together quite a while after they broke up, right? He should be the one who knows the most clearly. Yeah, at this time, as long as Li Yuan said a word, I would be fine, but would he really speak up for me? After struggling for a moment, I still dialed the phone number that I hadn't called for a year. Hello, the number you dialed is switched off. Please try again later. I was stunned, listening to the cold female electronic voice on the phone. Li Yuan had just reposted the Weibo. How could he be switched off? Fine-grained pain gradually welled up in my heart. I gave the agent a bitter smile. No, he blocked me. As the saying goes, when it rains, it pours. The director of a TV drama I was preparing to shoot also called on the phone. He stammered, Xiao Ning, I think this role isn't very suitable for you. Well, let's forget about this time. We can cooperate again if there's a chance in the future. I held the phone, stunned. This TV drama was the most important work for me this year. I really liked the female lead's character design. It was a role I had managed to get with great difficulty in order to play this role well. I pushed all my film offers half a year in advance and focused on honing my acting skills at home. I was anxious. Director Zhang, this is a signed contract matter, and this isn't our first cooperation. You should know my character. How can you replace me because of such unfounded rumors? Besides, if the female lead was replaced now, wouldn't it be tantamount to admitting that I had gotten involved in someone else's relationship? Director Zhang said embarrassedly, I know you, but, Xiao Ning, did you offend someone? The investor specifically called and asked us to replace you. You know, I have no choice. If possible, I'll organize a dinner party. You can go and plead with them to see if they'll agree. I wiped my face. Okay, I got it. Thank you for your trouble. The next day, I went to the appointment arranged by Director Zhang nervously. However, as soon as I entered the door, my steps stopped. In the huge private room, sitting in the main seat wasn't some pot-bellied investor, but a person I could recognize even if he turned into ashes. Li Yuan. He was wearing a dark blue high-end suit, with 2 buttons of his white shirt collar unbuttoned. His delicate features were so beautiful under the sparkling light of the crystal lamp that he didn't look like a real person. He was like a cold god. Director Zhang obviously didn't expect that this investment company was owned by Li Yuan either. He gave me a bitter smile. Yeah, Li Yuan's current salary was ridiculously high. He was clearly a talented actor, but his face was even more idol-like than an idol. As long as there was a movie with him, the box office was guaranteed to be high. His film offers were scheduled until the year after next. He had probably already made a fortune and started being a capitalist himself. I had cooperated with Director Zhang more than once, and we were quite familiar. He was also willing to do me a favor and smiled to smooth things over with Li Yuan. Mr. Li, this is Ning Yan, the original female lead. You two should be very familiar, so I don't need to introduce. I asked her to come today to let her apologize to you properly for whatever she might have offended you before. The little girl is young and inexperienced. She's had a hard time these years. Don't be too harsh on her. Xiao Ning. Director Zhang waved to me. Come on, let's toast Mr. Li together. I walked over stiffly, and Director Zhang stuffed a glass of wine into my hand. Li Yuan just looked at me expressionlessly, with a contemptuous look. Come on, Xiao Ning, Director Zhang urged. I held the wine glass, standing still as if frozen. Humiliation climbed up my ankles densely, and then tied me up tightly as it spread upwards. How ridiculous. I held the wine glass tightly, feeling the pain from my fingertips. I apologize. What do I have to apologize for? Apologize for being too stupid, loving him too much in the past, and so recklessly handing him the knife to stab me until I was bleeding. What exactly did I do wrong? Xiao Ning, what are you standing there for? Director Zhang was anxious and couldn't help but push me. Li Yuan crossed one leg, looking at me with interest. Miss Ning doesn't seem to want to drink this glass of wine. Since you're so reluctant, why are you still here? His gaze was like a knife, cutting me to pieces where I stood, but I couldn't leave. I needed this role too much. If the role was replaced now, not only would my efforts in the past 6 months be in vain, but it would also add the last straw to the already serious public opinion. It might really ruin my future if Li Yuan were to say something about me interfering in his relationship at this moment. I would truly be finished. After a long time, I slowly picked up the wine glass. I could even hear the sexy friction sound between my joints. I'm sorry, I was wrong before. Please be magnanimous and let me go. As I said this, I downed the drink in one gulp. The strong liquor burned my throat like a knife, as if cutting my internal organs to pieces. However, Li Yuan didn't show any mercy. He just sneered and said, 1 glass of wine and you want to get the female lead role? Miss Ning, you think too highly of yourself. My voice started to tremble. Then what do you want me to do? He put 2 fingers together and casually waved his hand behind him. The assistant came up with 2 bottles of wine and filled 10 glasses in a row with baijiu. The expressions of the people around changed, but since this was Li Yuan's territory, no one dared to speak. He tilted his head slightly, squinting at me. 10 glasses. After you finish drinking, the role is yours. I suddenly felt a bit dazed. The last time someone said this to me was 2 years ago when I was trying to get a role for Li Yuan. That bald-headed investor said to me with ill intentions, 10 glasses. After you finish drinking, I'll give him the role. And now, this person had become Li Yuan. Director Zhang's expression changed. Mr. Li Xiaoning isn't in good health. She can't drink that much. Maybe. Li Yuan just gave him a cold glance. Director Zhang, do you still want the investment for this drama? Director Zhang could only obediently shut his mouth and gave me a sympathetic look. I was silent for a while, then raised my head and gulped down the wine. The clear baijiu carried a pungent smell, making tears well up in the corners of my eyes. My stomach started to twitch, and the familiar pain gradually spread. 1 glass, Li Yuan leaned back in his chair, a mocking smile on his lips. 1 glass after another. My vision gradually became blurred. I didn't know if it was because of the alcohol or something else. I suddenly wanted to burst into tears. I really wanted to ask him what unforgivable sin it was to love him, that he had to hate me like this, but I couldn't cry. Tears were a weapon that only worked on those who loved you. In front of him, it would only make me lose the last bit of my dignity. The colic in my stomach became more and more intense. The doctor had seriously told me before that I couldn't drink like this anymore, but I had no choice. When I drank the 3rd glass, I didn't know if it was my illusion, but I always felt that Li Yuan's expression had changed. He seemed a bit angry, staring at me with a dark face. However, when I drank the 7th glass, I finally couldn't hold it in. I casually threw away the wine glass and rushed out of the door in a panic. Before I reached the bathroom, I vomited with a wow. The excruciating pain in my stomach made it almost impossible for me to straighten up. After my vision went dark for a long time, I barely managed to stand up. Leaning against the wall, my face was covered with tears from retching and pain, but I couldn't tell if it was from the stomachache or the heartache. I just felt so much pain, so much that I felt like I was going to die. But when I forced myself to go back, Li Yuan had already gone out. When he saw my appearance, he was stunned for a moment, then his expression turned cold again. I endured the intense pain and said in a trembling voice, Li Yuan, is there any other way? I really can't drink anymore. Li Yuan stood there for a while, then suddenly chuckled. After a moment, he leaned forward and whispered in my ear, I suddenly kind of miss your body, Miss Ning. How about you spend the night with me, and the female lead will still be yours. What do you think? I never expected him to say such a thing. I gritted my teeth tightly. What about Xin Yue? Aren't you with her? You don't deserve to mention her. Li Yuan sneered. You don't think I want to rekindle our old relationship, do you? I'm just bored. I want to try the old feeling. The air around seemed to want to strangle me, pulling away one by one, making it almost impossible to breathe. I blinked my sore eyes, and finally, that humiliating tear fell. Li Yuan seemed to be scalded. A trace of complexity flashed across his face once the tears started. I couldn't hold them back. I didn't care anymore. I simply raised my tear-stained face and looked at him, choking back sobs and saying, Li Yuan, do you know what the thing I regret the most in my life is? He was startled, and a trace of imperceptible expectation flashed in his eyes. What? I said word by word. The thing I regret the most is meeting you. I ignored Li Yuan's expression, which was so ugly that he seemed about to kill someone, and turned around and staggered away. In the long and bright corridor, I silently let my tears fall. I thought, this is the last time I'll cry for him in my life. My stomach problem eventually flared up. I stayed in the hospital for 3 days before getting better. I still didn't keep that role. Li Yuan gave it to Xin Yue. As I expected, the TV drama became a huge hit after it was broadcast. Although Xin Yue's performance in it was only mediocre, Li Yuan still used his connections to get her Best Actress award because of this interference in relationship incident. My career hit rock bottom. I couldn't even get a role for a long time. In order to get a chance to act, I had to go to the dinner parties that I used to hate the most, but perhaps it was bad luck. At the dinner party, I actually ran into Xin Yue and Li Yuan, who came together. Xin Yue had been in the limelight recently by hyping up her relationship with Li Yuan and her new TV drama. Many actors and directors around were flattering her. It still has to be Yue, she's beautiful and has good acting skills. No wonder she won the Best Actress award. Yeah, and she has such a good boyfriend. She's really a natural winner. Most people knew about the conflict between us. Some people deliberately stepped on me. Unlike some people, no matter how much they fight, they end up with nothing. Others get everything without fighting or grabbing. It's really incomparable. Xin Yue raised the corners of her lips. Yeah, what's yours is yours. You can't take it away. What's not yours, you can't force it. You think so, Yuan? My face gradually turned pale. Li Yuan didn't look at me from beginning to end. He just nodded casually. Yeah, by the way, I heard that the supporting male role that made Yuan popular was fought for by Yue. You two really help each other achieve success. Yeah, isn't it said on the internet that this is a fairy, like love? Everyone's been into it recently. Even I couldn't help but watch it. I was stunned and looked up at Li Yuan. He smiled softly, his eyes full of tenderness. Yeah, without Yue, I wouldn't be where I am today. As he said this, the two of them held hands, causing a round of cheering from the people around. Among everyone, only my agent and I couldn't force a smile. She grabbed my hand tightly and tried to lower her voice as she angrily said in my ear, "Wasn't that role obtained by you for him? How did it become Shin Yue's doing?" I didn't know. Looking at their affectionate appearance, I couldn't say a word. I just felt very confused and wanted to escape from here immediately. Shin Yue's eyes fell on me, with undisguised contempt and pride. Just then, an investor next to us suddenly spoke up. "They all say there's no true love in the entertainment industry, but I don't think so. I remember that Miss Ning drank until she had a gastric hemorrhage and was sent to the hospital in order to get a role for her boyfriend. I happened to be there at that time. I had some impression of this investor. I seemed to have had a meal with him before. Later, I heard that he went abroad to develop his business. He probably didn't know much about these things." Li Yuan was stunned for half a second and suddenly looked over at me. The disbelief on his face was almost a bit crazy. The investor asked with interest, "So how are you and your boyfriend now? Is his career going well?" The lights wandered in the bustling room. For a moment, I felt as if the people in front of me had all gone far away, and there was only silence in my world. After a long time, I said, "He's doing well, but we've broken up." The investor was a bit surprised. "Why? At that time, I could see that you liked him so much. I remember that later you were almost unconscious, but you still held on to the investor and refused to pass out until he promised to give the role to your boyfriend." All eyes were on me. Some were surprised, some were mocking, and some were just watching the show. The color drained from Shin Yue's face. She forced a smile and tugged at Li Yuan's hand. "Yuan, I suddenly don't feel well. Let's go." But this time, Li Yuan didn't pay attention to her. He just stared straight at me, his eyes filled with emotions I couldn't understand. Like a violent storm, his fingers turned blue as he tightly gripped the cup. I pulled up the corners of my lips, but the smile was fragmented and couldn't take shape. Now that those past events were being spoken out nakedly in front of the parties involved, I didn't feel any sense of revenge. I just felt a bit tired. It was all in the past. What was the point of bringing it up again? An actress who had a good relationship with me was a bit indignant on my behalf and deliberately asked, "Do you regret it now? You worked so hard for him." But in the end, it was all for someone else's benefit. The bottom of Li Yuan's eyes slowly turned red. I could feel his gaze almost burning a hole through me. I lowered my eyelids and said softly, "There's nothing to regret. I've already let it go." After leaving the restaurant, I was suddenly grabbed by the arm. Li Yuan was almost rough and urgent. "The person they were talking about, is it me?" I didn't know if it was my illusion, but his voice seemed to tremble slightly. "That role, it was you, wasn't it?" I shook off his hand and said expressionlessly, "So what if it was? What's there to talk about between us now? If his love and hate could be determined by just one role, then his feelings were too worthless. I didn't want them." Li Yuan slowly lowered his head, staring intently into my eyes. "Why didn't you tell me?" I pulled out a sarcastic smile. Why didn't I tell him? He was so proud back then. He would keep a distance from me when we went out and never held my hand in front of others. I knew he was afraid that others would say he was with me to climb up the ladder. In fact, Li Yuan had never asked me to help him. I knew he was too proud at his core. So except for that one time when we broke up and quarreled, I never mentioned what I had done for him at other times. Li Yuan apparently thought of this too and gradually calmed down. My agent followed me out. When she saw his appearance, she couldn't help but curse. "Back then, Ning Yan, that idiot, drank 10 glasses of whiskey for you." She didn't let go even when she was spitting blood. She insisted that the investor promised to give you the role. Do you know that when she was sent to the hospital with a gastric hemorrhage, the doctor issued a critical condition notice? Where were you at that time? Her stomach problem was almost cured, but you forced her to drink so much wine again. The agent was furious. "Do you have any conscience? Even if you don't remember her kindness to you, you two were together for so long. Have you lost your conscience?" Li Yuan had never been scolded like this before, but he didn't say a word. He just looked at me silently, with a mixture of regret, shock, and sadness in his eyes, making him almost unable to stand steadily. He staggered back a step. I grabbed my agent's arm and said calmly to Li Yuan, "You've already taken your revenge. Now, as you wished, I have nothing left. Although I don't know why you did this to me. We're even now, right?" He seemed to be stabbed by my words. His face turned pale. "No, Ning Yan, I interrupted him. "From now on, we'll go our separate ways. Let's part on good terms. Early the next morning, I was woken up by my agents bombarding phone calls. Go and check the hot search, she said anxiously. The dinner party last night was filmed. I was shocked. All my sleepiness disappeared instantly. I quickly picked up my phone. The first trending topic on the hot search was Li Yuan, Ning Yan, Xin Yue hashtag. The second was Ning Yan's interference in relationship hashtag. The third was dinner party video hashtag. The dinner party last night was filmed by someone, especially the part about me. After it was posted, it directly shot to the top of the hot search. Netizens were like melon-eating people, enjoying the drama based on the timeline. The ex-boyfriend they mentioned is Li Yuan, right? I remember that Ning Yan once announced that she was in the hospital during the filming of The One I Love. After that, Li Yuan got the role of Qing Nua, so actually, it was Ning Yan who got the role for him, right? Save it. Ning Yan's fans. Li Yuan himself said he was thanking Xin Yue. Can you stop getting involved? But Ning Yan has only had this one relationship. She said in an interview before that she has only been in love once in her life. Who else could it be if not Li Yuan? The internet was in an uproar, reaching a small climax after Xin Yue posted on Weibo. This time, Xin Yue didn't repost the dinner party video, she just posted an ambiguous sentence: justice lies in the hearts of the people. Instead of hyping things up, it's better to improve your professional skills. The implication was that I had self-directed and self-performed all of this. With this statement, Xin Yue's fans became even more in cyber bullying me. For a while, all kinds of insults filled the comments on my Weibo. Does Li Yuan even acknowledge you? You're so desperate to cling to him. Can't you live without hyping? You don't have many works, but you're really good at hyping. No wonder you're so unpopular now. Just disappear completely. Go die, go die, go die, go die. Ning Yan, get out of the entertainment industry. Ban Ning Yan. My agent was almost on the verge of going crazy. Why is nothing good happening when you're involved with these two people? Is Li Yuan jinxing you or something? What should we do now? The company can hardly protect you anymore. Just when my mind went blank, my agent suddenly exclaimed, Li Yuan has posted on Weibo. She eagerly stuffed the phone in front of me, and there was a sentence posted by Li Yuan: that role was indeed fought for me by Ning Yan. She has never interfered in my relationship with Xin Yue. I apologize to Ning Yan for this belated clarification. This was like a stone thrown into a calm lake, causing huge waves. Netizens were almost in a frenzy. Who the hell is telling the truth? I'm so confused. Didn't he thank Xin Yue before? Did Li Yuan get deceived? When that person was talking about this, he seemed really shocked, as if he was hearing it for the first time. It must be Xin Yue who self-directed and self-performed this. This woman is so shameless. Damn it. Be careful with your words. Upstairs, if the reposts exceed 500, it's considered a rumor. Watch out for a lawsuit. However, since Li Yuan himself had come forward to clarify, some details of our relationship were gradually dug out by netizens, which confirmed that we got together after his breakup with Xin Yue. In just a few days, my public image improved significantly, and my fans increased by tens of millions. The previous endorsements came back, and many dramas approached me at this time, planning to promote themselves by taking advantage of this opportunity. On the contrary, Xin Yue's reputation became a mixed bag. Many of her fan station masters directly unfollowed her and revealed some inside information. She's always two-faced. When she received the gifts we gave her, she had a big smile on her face, but then she turned around and kept the expensive ones, throwing the letters we wrote into the trash. It's normal for her to take credit for what Ning Yan did. Yeah, Xin Yue is so fake. She often acts one way in front of people and another way behind their backs. She always boasted that she never accepted unspoken rules, but that time I went to the film set and saw her knocking on the director's door in the middle of the night. It just shows that everyone in the entertainment industry has a persona. Just because of one sentence from Li Yuan, our situations were completely reversed. Even Xin Yue's Best Actress award was questioned as the result of unspoken rules. Netizens dug out her acting clips and mocked her for being shameless. The luxury brand endorsements she had just obtained terminated their contracts with her one after another. For a while, she was even worse off than I was at that time, my agent said with a complicated expression. I didn't expect him to have a conscience and clarify things for you. But what was he doing earlier? He made you suffer so much. I didn't say anything. I also didn't understand what Li Yuan was up to. Maybe his conscience suddenly woke up. The situation kept escalating. Even the company registered under Xin Yue's name was dug out. Things like her being a mistress for someone in her early years, sitting on the director's lap and feeding him wine, and knocking on the director's door in the middle of the night were all exposed. The fans who unfollowed her were even more powerful than the anti-fans. They actually reported her for tax evasion. This time, Xin Yue was really finished. She had indeed evaded taxes, and the official account directly exposed her matter. She needed to pay back 170 million yuan in taxes. She was completely blacklisted. For a while, she was like a rat crossing the street, hated by everyone. Xin Yue called me like crazy. Was it you, Ning Yan? Was it you who reported me? She shouted hysterically. I just took one credit from you, but Li Yuan was originally mine. Do you have to be so ruthless? Why don't you die, Ning Yan? You go die. I just listened quietly and then smiled and said, instead of going crazy at me here, you'd better hurry up and learn how to sew on a sewing machine. Maybe you can sew more insoles in there and get a merit, so you can get out of prison earlier. After making money, Xin Yue squandered it recklessly. She had no idea where the money had gone. How could she possibly come up with 170 million yuan when the deadline for tax payment arrived? She still couldn't come up with the money and was directly taken away by the police. 3 months later, she was prosecuted for tax evasion and sentenced to 7 years in prison. Xin Yue was completely finished. I got a new female lead role. The 6 months of training before was still useful. I got into the character quickly, and the director kept praising my acting skills. The female lead was a woman of the streets who had been betrayed by a scumbag and drifted for half her life, probably because I had experienced so much during this period. I could well integrate the sense of fatigue of this character. I even couldn't get out of the character for a long time after the filming was over. Perhaps it was a turn for the better. This role helped me win the Best Actress award. Standing on the stage to receive the award, I wasn't as ecstatic as I had expected. I just calmly accepted the trophy. The host asked if I had anyone I wanted to thank. I thanked everyone from the director to my agent. Finally, after thinking for a while, I said, I also want to thank myself. Thank myself for being able to get through all the difficulties. Now I finally understand that loving myself is more important than anything else. At the celebration banquet after the awards, I met Li Yuan again. He had drunk himself into a stupor, and with red eyes, he grabbed my wrist in a secluded place. Ning Yan, can we get back together? I looked at him and laughed. Li Yuan, have you lost your mind? He had lost a lot of weight, and his voice was hoarse. I've thought a lot these days and finally figured it out. Actually, I didn't hate you. I was just so incompetent and inferior at that time. I was always afraid that you would despise me and leave me, so I treated you like that. In fact, I was just constantly confirming that you wouldn't leave me, but you finally left me. I thought, just as I expected, you really didn't want me anymore. I hated you so much these years. I hated that you left me like you would abandon a dog. I tried to numb myself by being with others, but my mind was full of you. Xin Yue lied to me. She said she fought for the role for me. I was muddle-headed at that time. Will you forgive me? He raised his head, with a hint of pleading in his eyes. You loved me too, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't have tried so hard to get the role for me. I understand now. I won't treat you like that again. Come back, okay? A glint of moisture flashed in his eyes, and he almost pleaded, please. Looking at him like this, I couldn't help but laugh. Li Yuan, you treated me so badly for Xin Yue at that time, and now you can kick her when she's down for me, just because of one role. Who do you really love, me or her? Or just a person you fabricated in your mind? Is this some kind of Schrodinger's love? A trace of pain flashed in his eyes, and he said eagerly, no, it's not. I continued, can you hurt others unscrupulously just because of your own inferiority? Li Yuan, don't make me feel that loving you was the most embarrassing thing in my life. After saying that, I turned around and left. Behind me, he said hoarsely and tremblingly, Ning Yan, actually, the person I thanked back then was you. His voice was full of pain. Li Yuan was such a proud person. I had never seen him like this, but I still walked further and further away, never looking back from beginning to end. 3 days later, Weibo crashed again. The reason was that Li Yuan announced his withdrawal from the entertainment industry. He sold his company shares, luxury cars, and villas, and used all the money to pay the liquidated damages on Weibo. He left only one last paragraph. Ning Yan didn't promote herself when it was the most important moment for her, but asked everyone to take care of Li Yuan. She really loves him. I don't expect her forgiveness. I just want to spend the rest of my life atoning for my mistakes. Then there was no news of him anymore. Li Yuan's Weibo post cleared the last obstacle for me. From then on, no one said that I had interfered in other people's relationships. Instead, my popularity was hyped up wave after wave, and I received the sympathy of a large number of netizens. I was called the best ex-girlfriend, and every day, a large number of netizens left messages on my Weibo to encourage me in this farce. I became the final winner. Li Yuan never came to look for me again. 3 months later, I received a text message from an unknown mobile number. There were only 3 short words, I'm sorry. I looked at it for a while, thought about it, And then deleted the text message. I also blocked the number. Let the past be the past. I never regretted loving him, but I wouldn't love him anymore. My agent called me from the side. Hurry up, hurry up. Director Zhang is looking for you. He said there's a new role that's particularly good and asked you to go for an audition right away. After Director Zhang replaced me with another actress last time, he always felt very guilty and kept trying to compensate me. He gave me the female lead roles in several dramas. I was almost becoming his regular female lead, but our cooperation was pretty good. We